Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming in today and watching our webinar. We are so happy to bring you some budgeting tips and tricks today. My name is Ty. I'm going to be leading today's webinar. Obviously, we are here with the Harvard Federal Credit Union. We're going to talk a little bit about that too before we jump into the sort of meat and potatoes of today's presentation. But let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be talking about budgeting tips today, which is kind of an overview of a lot of just like financial health, financial education stuff, primarily focusing on how to build a budget, how to improve spending habits, stuff like that. But before we jump in, I want to introduce our team. My name is Ty, and I'm here with Terrence and our boss, Jen, actually. Jen's going to be in the background dropping links in the chat and stuff like that. But Terrence and I are going to be kind of we're the community engagement team with the Harvard Federal Credit Union, and we are so happy to be here with you guys today. So a little bit about the credit union before we start. We are Harvard's not-for-profit banking institution. So what this means is we're separate from the big banks because we are a not-for-profit organization, which means that the profits we do make as an institution, we actually give back to our community, to our members, and we were actually founded by Harvard employees back in the day. Because they wanted a way to be able to put their money and save money without needing to join one of the bigger banks, and they wanted some protections that a credit union provides. So I just want to let you know, you are all eligible to join the credit union if you so desire. If you do decide to join, you become members for life, and the membership benefits you have, you can always leave and come back, and it extends to your family, which is pretty darn cool, I gotta say. We do have a lot of convenience and a lot of products and services. One of the ways that we give back is that we actually waive a lot of fees that a lot of other banks charge, as well as we have really solid interest rates as well for different products. That's some of the profits that we're able to give back, including one of the coolest things that we do is we actually waive all ATM fees. So if you have an account with us and you need to go and get cash out at an ATM that's either privately owned or owned by another bank, the fee that ATM is going to charge you, we're actually going to waive that and give that back in your account for you. So that's pretty darn cool. And then we have a lot of options for student loans, refinancing, all that sort of stuff. And even though we are a smaller institution and as far as branch footprint goes, we don't have as many like bank branches as perhaps, Bank of America, something like that. We do shared branching, with all the other credit unions, or a lot of
What is shared branching, Ty?
Shared branching, Terrence, is that you can go into a different credit union, like not our credit union at all, like another credit union somewhere in the nation, and you can actually access your accounts that you have here at Harvard Federal Credit Union at their credit union. The credit unions kind of work together to make sure that people can have access to their money and you don't feel like you're getting less out of having a smaller institution in terms of footprint, have your money. So there's a lot of cool things. There's a lot more on the website. Check us out or stop by the branch in Harvard Square or some of our other locations. But for now, let's get into today's webinar. So today we're going to be talking about building your dream budget, improving your financial habits, different ways that you can improve your spending and find different ways to help save money. So to start out with, I actually want a little bit of a group a group project. I want all of you to take the money personality quiz, which I believe is going to be a link dropped in the chat. If you click on this, it's like 8 questions long. Feel free to fill it out while we're kind of talking here. We're going to just slow down a little bit so everybody can kind of begin to get their money and personality. But this is just a way that we can kind of learn about how each of us individually behaves with money. There's this whole behavioral economics study where, based on our upbringing and our lives and what's important to us, we all sort of interact with money differently, or we have different ways that we think about money. And that is like sort of predetermined, kind of programmed into us, where we're going to think about money in different ways, or sometimes struggle with money in different ways, because we all have sort of these behavioral things that we have on us that affect how we deal with the world and money especially. And so if you all just take a few minutes to fill out this quiz, you're going to learn a little bit about yourself and how it comes to taking money. And then we can kind of learn how to maximize that. Or if there's certain things we struggle with, we can learn some sort of like mental accounting tips and tricks to be able to better improve on some of those habits. So
Nice.
I want to talk a little bit about mine real quick before we get into budgeting styles. The 4 money personalities are money worship, money avoidance, money vigilance, and money status. They all sound a little negative, or they can, especially some of the descriptions, but it's not a negative thing. None of these are inherently bad or good. They're just different ways that we think about money. So, for example, mine is I actually score pretty high on both money avoidance as well as money vigilance, which is quite strange to me because it's like I don't like to think about my finances. I don't like to check my bank account very often. I want it to just do its thing. But I'm also very focused on savings. And so it's tricky being able to balance those two things and find ways to not have to like overly think and look at my accounts because I know I have that avoidant in me, but also I am focused on those savings. And so finding ways to make sure that those two things ebb and flow and work together is a little tricky. And I will talk about that more in today's presentation. But Terrence, what's your money personality? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Actually, my money personality is money worship, is money status and money vigilant. I picked up money status from being in banking for the last 10 years. I think it's definitely jaded my personality and allowed me to have a bit more weight when it comes to money, when it comes to like how I think money impacts my personality. And money vigilant. This is probably something that I picked up from my childhood, where there wasn't a lot of money going around, and I think a lot of people can identify with that, not being in the best financial situation growing up. And it's helped me be a bit more vigilant when it comes to my money. And I do want to also echo what Ty has mentioned. None of these money personalities are set in stone. No matter where you are, it's not a right or wrong place to be. And the purpose of taking this quiz is to get some information and some insight so that way as we go out through the rest of the presentation, we'll pick up some tips and tricks, as Ty mentioned, to help you better interact with your money personality in ways that allow you to achieve your financial wellness goals.
Exactly. You got it. You hit it right on the money there. All right. So, with that in mind, it's always good to know what sort of your money personality is. But for now, we're going to jump into budgeting styles and different ways you can start tracking your budgeting, tracking how you're spending money, and covering all the things you need to cover. So, the first one that we really like to talk about is called the 50-30-20
It's my
sort of
favorite.
budget. Yeah, this is the one that I use as well as just like a sort of introduction to kind of how much to spend, how much to save, what you need to kind of cover. And I really want to hit home is that one of the first tricks to improving at anything really is to make sure you're learning about it, to make sure you're shining a magnifying glass or a spotlight on it, to like think about it, write it down, take the money personality quiz, things like that, because it's so easy to like avoid things if you're money avoidant, especially, and not think about it, not like analyze it. But the first step is to break down exactly what your spending habits are. And the 50-30-20 budget basically just gives us a framework with which we can do that. So basically, according to this budgeting style, about 50% of all of our incoming funds, we should try to make sure that amount is spent on essentials. So essentials here means like rent, medical expenses, but you'll notice it also says things like travel on here. And what I like to highlight with essentials is that there's some obvious ones like things you need to live, like food, rent, shelter, all that stuff. But kind of essentials a little bit is what is important to you. What is something you must do, you can't give up, Like for example, some people that are money avoidant really want to make sure that they are like donating money and doing that kind of thing. Now, of course, you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself first, but if you are able to bring in money and comfortably like donate or give money to better causes, that could be an essential for you. So it's just really you want to make sure that you're thinking about the things that are absolutely important and the things that you must cover for either your own personal code or also like, cost of living, that kind of thing. Then there's wants. Wants are flexible spending, so things such as entertainment, going out to the movies, going to a concert, getting yourself some nice clothes. Hobbies, there's a lot of hobbies that have a lot of kind of expense associated with them. I play a lot of like collectible card games and things like that, and those can get expensive. So something to keep track of. But new clothing, eating food out, that kind of thing. Like whatever you kind of find joy doing, whatever you enjoy spending your money on, that isn't necessarily classified as an essential, you would want to kind of cover that in the wants section. And then savings. Savings is obviously like saving money, whether that is in an emergency fund, saving for retirement. If you have like a nice emergency fund already, you can work on investing, that kind of thing. But you want to try to, at least according to 50-30-20 budget rule, if you can, save around 20% of the amount of money you have coming in. Now, another thing I really want to highlight is that um, this is a framework. If this doesn't 100% work for you in terms of these numbers, that's okay. We're all at different places in our lives financially, in our life. Perhaps, for example, somebody might be pointing out the obvious. Rent in Boston here, if you had a one bedroom,
Hmm.
it's gonna be more than 50% of most people's incoming budget. And that doesn't leave any much room for things such as medical expenses or, phone bill, things like that, other things that are considered to be essential. And that, happens. So in the terms where rent is 50% of the budget, more than, you have to look at some other options, right? So that could be like roommate. It could be, finding living a little bit further away for a little bit cheaper rent, stuff like that. So there are different things that you might need to do in order to make sure that you can sort of slot things into these things. But if you don't know where to start, this is a great place. Anything you want to chime in with, Terrence?
Yeah, it's honestly, you took one first off, great job. And two, I want to hone in on something you mentioned earlier with travel, where I think it's important to include some level of self-care as an essential. It's not just a want, it's not just a savings goal. Whatever that means to you to ensure that you're having a healthy balance when it comes to work-life balance and like your life overall. I think making it an essential solidifies it as a priority that you need to maintain who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
I say that to say budgeting doesn't always have to be this structured, strict, nitty-gritty inputs and outputs. It's supposed to be a vehicle to allow you to live a life that you feel worth like living and whatnot. I don't mean to say it like philosophical, but is also a tool to help you live your best life.
I love that. Yeah, I totally agree. Like I make sure that when I budget in my wants, I put boba tea budget in there because even though
There you
it's an
go.
expensive drink, I love it. It brings me joy. It makes me feel good. But you want to make sure that when you're doing this, when you're aligning your percents, your essentials, your wants, that you're able to fit that, right? Like you might need to change some things if perhaps there's too much things that are being, you have a little too many wants, you're doing a little bit too much spending there, or maybe your essentials is higher than 50%, whatever it is. You just want to make sure that you're using this framework to try to like fit things in where you can and seeing if you need to make a lifestyle choice or change. But we will get more into that later. But
Mm.
just pointing out here as an example sample budget here, if you bring in about 37.50 monthly, breaking that down, we'd try to save about 18.75 for essentials, 11.25 for wants and fun, and then about 7.50 in savings, which honestly is not bad. If you're saving 7.50 a month, that's really good and a great place to start. All right. Now, another version of the budgeting tool is zero-based budgeting. Now, this is a great one, I think, if you are somebody who, like me in the past, has trouble letting their expenses kind of get away from them. They realize that like they're spending too much money, but they don't really know what's going on. This is a great first step with that. So the first thing you're going to want to do with this is you're going to want to track your expenses for 1 month, whether that's like making sure you're looking at your online banking a lot, or at the end of the month, you go in and you get your bank statement, which shows all of your purchases and everything on there, and you break down all of your expenses that you're getting or that you're spending. Then you're going to take your monthly income, how much you get bringing in a month. In our sample budget, we had 37.50 here as the monthly income. So you would take that and then you would subtract all of your expenses. So you would go into your bank statement or your bank account history on online banking, and you would, or if you're doing it like live and you're writing down every purchase you make with your debit card, really shining a light on it that way, you would take the total monthly income you have and subtract each of the things that you're spending. That also includes savings. So if you're transferring money to a savings account, subtract that also from your monthly income. And if you're doing things right, your leftover money should come to zero because that means you've allotted everything. You haven't spent more than you're bringing in, which is, a goal that we should all have. And so if it doesn't quite reach zero, you want to take a look at those expenses that you have going on for the month and and pinpoint some that were maybe a little bit too much or a little bit more than you needed to spend, or maybe your wants were a little too high that month, especially if you haven't really gotten into the budgeting practice yet, and trying to bring that number closer to zero however you can, and then try to do a little bit better next month and make sure that you're getting closer to zero. So this is a great first step to like really hone in on the things that you are spending your money on, because it's so easy to get like, maybe I'm buying boba too often as an example, and I don't even realize it because I'm like, oh, like every time I'm in Harvard Square, I want to get a boba because it's my favorite place is there, and I grab one, and then it adds up really quickly. I do want to make sure I point out though that we never want to tell you you can't get Starbucks, you can't get boba. So many like other sort of budgeting financial like advice columns will say like just don't buy iced Starbucks coffee and you'll be a millionaire by the time you're 35. Let me tell you, that won't happen. But the point is, you can spend your money on what you want to, but you got to do moderation and you got to practice making sure that you're allocating things in a way that's going to keep you on that zero base budget and allow you to save money.
Can I add in a little bit here, Ty?
Absolutely. Please do. Yeah.
I'm going to add in a little bit of a joke. I don't know if you are aware of the new TikTok trend being very demure, very mindful.
I literally just saw that today.
Budgeting is one way to be very mindful of where your finances are going and to take it a little bit of a step further, where it's not just knowing where your money is going, it's getting the information and then using it to make a decision to change the path and change the flow. For example, I used to have a phone bill of $250 per month, and I just paid it because I thought, you know what, I got a phone bill, I got to keep it going, I need a phone, right? And it wasn't until I started budgeting that I realized, there's some options out there. I live in a capitalist economy. I have 10 different phone providers that I could choose from. Why don't I make a different choice? And
Yeah.
through the
There's
power of, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, there's always choice. There's always ways we can re-examine something we're spending on. Phone bill's a great option. I myself was tired of being with AT&T because they always overcharge for everything. So I switched to Google Fi, which is a smaller network. It's through Google, but like it has just as much service. And then I can expense my phone through Best Buy or something like that. There's so many different ways you can do things to lower your bills, that kind of thing. So it's always worth looking at this. And if you think that maybe something's being spent a little bit high, there's always ways you can take a look at it and find a way to change. All right, so we're going to talk about some budgeting tools. So the first one I want to focus on, this says Mint, which is a little outdated. Mint is shut down, or at least been rebranded with another vendor here. But there are a lot of things like that out there. There are different apps and sort of online or different like tools that you can do where you like will put in your bank account information. It'll help you track everything. It'll give you recommendations on how you can try to save and stuff like that. I've tried to use some of those in the past, and I just had trouble keeping up with it, and it was just a little too much for me. It was trying to do too much, and because I'm a little more money avoidant, I needed something that was a little bit more my speed. So what I actually do is I use an Excel worksheet. I use a Google Sheet right in there, and you can use a really simple, straightforward thing where you just type out like essentials, wants, savings, and you can just start plugging things in and figuring out how much you're spending on different things, how much you need to allocate money to, and you can have it all add up right on a worksheet. Is a really great option. It's completely free, just right on Google Sheets. But there's also slightly more involved tools that are completely able to be customized by you, such as online banking budget. Through the credit union, we actually have an online budgeting tool on our online banking that's totally free for all our members. They can just go on there, start plugging things in, start filling out their budget. If they need something that's a little bit more already outlined, other than like a Google Sheet where you got to kind of start filling in your own stuff. So there's lots of great tools. A lot of them are completely free, probably through your bank, through the credit union, stuff like that. So take a look at what is out there. And the envelope cash method is actually something that I kind of like to highlight because it is an outdated sort of old-fashioned way of doing things, which is when you get your paycheck, you actually cash out your paycheck, you get all the cash, and then you take a bunch of envelopes, and you write on the envelopes everything that you need to spend money on with that money. So for example, you would write one that would be rent, one that would be bills, one that would be groceries, things like that. And then when you get your paycheck, you break it all down into the different envelopes, however much you need to save for each paycheck for savings and rent and all that stuff. And then whenever you're going to go and you're going to buy groceries or whatever it is, you take the grocery envelope and you go into the store and you spend money from the grocery envelope. And then when that runs out of money, you're all set for groceries. You better have grocery shopped well. And we're going to get into some tips with that as well. But that's a little outdated in terms of the envelopes and cash. A lot of things are digitized and pretty much everything is done by debit card these days. So I actually like to highlight that I use a sort of more modern day version of this method, which is because I'm more money avoidant and I like to make sure everything's already accounted for and I don't like to go in and do it myself all the time. I have a lot of extra bank accounts just open with the credit union. So when I go on my online banking, I don't have just one checking account where I use my debit card, my expenses come out. I actually have three. And I have a couple different savings accounts as well. So my checking accounts, I label them. One is rent and one is bills. And then my main one with my debit card is expenses. So when I get paid, instead of using an envelope, I get my paycheck and then I transfer money to the rent account. I transfer money to the bills account. And then I know that the money I have left over in my expense account with my debit card is the money I have to spend on things like groceries and food and wants and that kind of thing. So it's a little bit easier for me to track and keep an eye on exactly how much I have available because I know that the money I need for bills and the money I need for savings has already been transferred, is already there. It's pre-committed to those places. And those, but my rent and my bills, they get auto paid directly from those accounts. So my money avoidant thing, I can check that box because the auto pay happens. I don't have to go and do it manually. And then I can just check my main account, make sure I'm not spending too much, make sure if I start to get a little bit low, that I'm changing my spending habits a little bit. And I know that I've already put my money in savings. So that's just another way that you can make use of your different accounts. And a lot of banks will let you just open extra accounts and have them for free. You don't have to have a debit card for each one. You can have your main like expenditure account, and then your other ones where you can allocate money and make bill pays and that kind of thing.
Very good.
Okay, so financial goals. As I was talking before about making sure you're shining a spotlight on different things, making sure you're getting it out there in the world. One of the best ways to improve, or if you have a goal in mind, is to literally write that goal down. Write it down on a piece of paper, write it on a note on your phone, write it in a Word document on your computer, whatever it is. Write down exactly what your goal is. For me personally, and one we can use as an example for today's presentation and how to apply different things to it, is that I am actually going on my honeymoon next spring in May. I'll be getting married in October. Very excited.
Congratulations. Hey.
But we're going to Japan. That's a pretty expensive flight and trip. So my financial goal is to save $5,000 by May, which is quite a bit. I already have worked on it a little bit, so I'm already kind of there. But whatever your financial goal is, and this doesn't need to be some big trip. It doesn't need to be like pay off my house or pay off my car. It can be like, I really want to go and see Taylor Swift in concert. I really want to go and see, I really want to get a PS5. I really want to do something that I don't quite have a good path to. I don't quite have a good plan on how to accomplish it. But it's something that's really important to me, something I really want to do, maybe buy a laptop, a new computer, something like that. And writing that down and coming up with a plan is really going to help you do that. And we're going to talk about some different spending habits and different tips and tricks you can kind of employ to sort of reach that goal. Do you have a financial goal, Terrence?
Yes, I do. My goal is to pay off my car by 2025, and I have $8,000 left to pay off. I'm very happy. I do not want a car payment anymore.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right. So now that we have our goal, we need to break it down into a goal gradient. It's so easy for me to say, oh, I want to save $5,000 by May. $5,000 is a lot of money. And May is, I mean, it's a little ways away, but there's holidays. There's a lot of extra spending between now and then. 5,000 is a big number. What am I supposed to do with that? Well, I'm going to break it down into how many, let's say, in this example, it's saying you want to save $10,000 over the course of, believe 3 years or so, right?
I think it's a total goal, and then
An
annually.
emergency fund. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we would break that 10,000 down to 3,000 for a year. And then we can break that down further to 250 for a month. And suddenly that $10,000 emergency fund is a lot more approachable when you're like, oh, I could probably save 250 a month, right? Like, even though it'll take me a few years to get to that plan, to get to that emergency fund goal, like being able to break it down is much more manageable in terms of, oh, I can do that. I can transfer that money to my savings account. I can leave it there. And then before you know it, I'll have that $3,000 for the year. And then, oh, maybe next month, you know what? Actually, the 250 has been really easy for me. I can bump it up a little bit. Maybe I'll try to save $300 a month. And if you're increasing and you're starting slow and incrementally increasing as you go and trying to figure out the right balance for you, suddenly that 10,000 is not so far away. And it's much easier to feel good about it, to have some momentum behind it. When your monthly habits, you're able to figure out a way to save some and then maybe increase it a little bit if you're able to. But if not, you know that you're getting there one step at a time, rather than being like, how am I ever going to save $10,000? I don't even know where to begin.
Cool. And I do have a trick for this, by the way, Ty. I don't mean to
Oh,
cut
great.
you
I
off.
love it. What you got?
Is procrastination saving, something that I coined the term, but it's not my concept. It is opening a savings account at a bank where you are not going to frequent. So what I mean by that is I have a bank account at Rockland Federal Credit Union. It's very far from me. I do not have a debit card from them. I do not sign up for online banking. And I do set up direct deposit to go into that account every time I get paid. So if I ever want to access those funds, I have to physically get up, go to the bank on a Saturday before they close. And on Saturdays, I like to be lazy, like to clean my car, do my own thing. And I'm
Mhm.
unlikely to go to the bank to pull out some cash because it feels like whatever I'm going to pull out the cash for, it's not more important than what I'm saving it for. And that helps me save.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's especially good if you know yourself and you know that if there's money in your account, you tend to spend it or something like that, or you struggle a little bit with really committing to some of those savings goals and that kind of thing. Doing something like that is like a really great way to make sure that it's a little harder for you.
I am definitely a lazy savings king.
All right, so the what the heck effect, though. We are all humans. We make mistakes. We are not perfect. Like Terrence said, sometimes you need to put your money in a whole different building so you don't spend it. It
Hmm.
is, it can be easy to not follow through on some of these things, whether or not that is your fault, whether or not that is something you have control over. For example, maybe your car breaks down, you have an expensive repair that pops up, and suddenly me saving for my honeymoon isn't looking so great when I had to spend $500 on a new car part or something like that. That's going to take a notch down of my monthly goal for my savings. Maybe I'm even going to have to take money from my savings in order to help cover some of that. But it's really easy to feel unmotivated or demotivated when that happens to continue to save because you're like, oh, well, I might as well give up. It's too late. I'm not going to be able to reach my original goal. But in this case, even if I had a 1 month where I got knocked down, I'm still taking steps forward. It's okay if you take, uh, you know, 2 steps back, but then 3 steps forward. You're always going to be improving. You're always going to be able to increase. If you had trouble struggling with uh, holding yourself accountable for the amount of savings you're trying to put out and you find yourself spending too much and taking from it, maybe that would be a great time to try Terrence's procrastination savings technique and start putting that savings in a whole nother bank and making it a little bit harder for yourself to access it and just figuring out those savings habits. But the important part is you want to stay hopeful, you want to stay motivated. I'd love to quote Star Trek here
There it
because I'm a big
is.
fan. But what I love here is there's a Star Trek quote that's pretty famous from Captain Picard where he goes, it is possible in life to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not failure, that is life. And I really like
Bars.
that because
Bars.
even if you do everything right, even if you saved the right amount and all these things, stuff happens, life happens, things get more expensive. But that doesn't mean you failed. That just meant life threw you a little curveball and you're going to make it. You're going to get there. It might just take a slightly different path or a slightly different method.
Great advice. Nothing to add.
All right, so we're going to talk now about expenses and income and different ways you can improve on your habits with these, especially if you find yourself spending a lot of money or struggling with limiting your spending when needed. So there's a couple different strategies here. One is a style that's kind of like the zero-based budgeting, where you're going to track your spending for 2 weeks and then go back and check your statements. And you're going to see exactly what you've been spending money on. Maybe like I have was talking about, you spend a little too much on boba, you need to cut back on that a little bit. That's cool. But shining a spotlight on some of those things, some of those habits, is going to be a really great way to find different ways that you can probably be like, you know what? I don't need that much. I didn't realize I was spending that much. I like my boba, but I'm going to curve it back a little bit. And that way you can start to look at what your expenses are, start to cut back on some of those. Um, you're going to take a look at what expenses come around once every few months. There are some subscription services that get charged like every 3 months instead of like every month, stuff like that, or like every year and things like that. And it's a little bit harder to understand how much it's impacting your finances when something like that doesn't hit your bank except once in a great while for a larger amount. That amount is not like, I mean, it is one big payment, but if you break it down like the gold gradient and you realize you're paying like $12 a month or something for something like Amazon Prime or whatever it is, then you're going to be like, oh, that is actually kind of a big expense that even though it's not charged me every month, is something that I don't necessarily make use of all that much, but it's more sneaky when it hits my account. And so I don't notice all the time exactly when it's going to happen.
And I
Terrence, I
do
know
want
you,
to mention.
yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say, Ty?
Oh, I was just going to ask, I know you've talked about setting alerts for your spending. So I was going to ask you about your experience with that.
Oh, definitely. Before I go into that, I want to say that's by design.
Mhm.
The having different amounts, not different amounts, but the sneaky charges where they're just under your radar of like, oh, I don't really feel this 12.99. I don't really feel this like 8.99. It's by
Mhm.
design. So that way we don't notice it. We don't start to change our habits because we just, again, we get a little complacent when it comes to some of these subscription services.
That's
And
true.
thanks for being on the webinar for all of you who are on here because you are no longer complacent. You now know what's happening, and hopefully you can make a change in the future. To go into the spending alerts, I do that. I have a few alerts on my credit card, actually specifically on both of my credit cards that are set whenever I spend anything over $100, no matter what happens. If it's something that I know about, something I don't know about, any kind of charge like that, I want to be notified of it. So that way, if it's something that I wasn't expecting, or if it's a large purchase, I can always take a moment to pause and be like, do I really want to do this? Or was that necessary for me to do? Or do I still need this service in that way? So I set my threshold to be $100 just to let me know. So that way I know when large transactions are coming out.
You go to make the purchase and it goes, do you really want to do this? And
I
you're
know
like,
it really is that moment of pause, just like, hey, you spent $100 right now. Is that really what you want to do? And sometimes I don't, to be honest with you. And
yeah,
actually, one more trick when it comes to setting, kind of like in the same vein as spending alerts, is not having your credit card or debit card saved on your phone. That's huge. I have found that sometimes if you are scrolling on Instagram or you see something on Amazon and you want to purchase it, put it in your cart. And if it's that one click buy, that spur of the moment impulse buy, it's easy to spend the money. But if your cards are in your car or in your wallet and your wallet's in your car, you might not want to get outside. Like I said, I'm lazy. You may not want to go out there. And if you don't want to go out there, it just kind of sits. And then 5 days later, you forget about it. And then you saved money. And then you win and you're a happy camper. I,
yeah,
I
I
make
love
my
that.
laziness works for me. I try to.
I love it. And then, of course, there's the cost of debt. So the amount of debt that you have, whether that's student loans or car payment, or even you're paying off your phone. A lot of phone plans will be like, you can upgrade and then pay it off over 2 years, stuff like that. That's debt on your thing. And those add up really quickly, especially when it's like, oh, a phone upgrade, I get a brand new phone. But you generally got to lock into another 2 years of paying that off with your plan and whatever it is. And that adds up really quick. So for people that are a little bit more money status, where they feel like they really want the newest product, the newest sort of phone product, the newest kind of sneakers or headphones, things like that, those like new things that feel really nice to have. That's great. But especially if you're paying those things off over time and just upgrading your phone and rolling it over into a next one, you're never going to really finish paying off that phone because you're going to upgrade it before you finish paying off the first one. And your phone bill's always going to be kind of including that debt in there. So just making sure you like understand kind of all the things you're paying off, the timeline available to them, like how much it's costing you a month, and figuring out different ways of like plans to maybe improve getting rid of some of that debt, especially if you have a high interest rate. Is going to help save a lot of money if you can kind of work that into your budgeting and how much you're using to pay off. Okay, so reducing your expenses. There are a number of ways you can do it. There's no like magic way to be like, oh, and now suddenly I'm amazing at it. It's a lot of mental work. It's a lot of hard work, especially if you're very habit focused like I am. But there's a lot of sort of like mental tips and tricks you can kind of do to help you out with this. Shifting priorities, for example. You could be like, you know what? I go out to eat lunch every day at work because it's just easier. It's there. I like the hot food. I like it better. But I end up going way above on my wants budget because I just tend to be eating out way too often. I'm in work, in the office maybe 3 days a week, something like that, or maybe every day. And you're just like, I'm spending like $10+ on lunch every day. And, that's great. That's a want I love. I need it. I love the hot food. I love the food available to me in Harvard Square, for example. It's awesome. But I need to shift my priority a little bit to make sure that that's one of the spending things I can reduce my expenses on. And there are great ways you can do that. I can get better at bringing lunches that I want, bringing microwavable lunches that are still like that hot food that I really like, bringing more food from home, that kind of thing, shifting my priorities away from, I really like this piece of this thing, but now I can kind of save it as a treat myself thing. And I can change my habit, my priority to work on saving money a little bit here. And I'm going to feel really great when that's done. And when I'm able to like get better at making food at home, bringing lunches in, and then I can still treat myself every once in a while to one of those like lunches at a restaurant in town, and that would feel really great on those days. But I'm going to feel good knowing that I'm improving my expenses by shifting away from buying food every day to maybe once or twice a week.
Ooh, I want to
Refinancing.
add.
Yeah, of course,
Oh,
please.
I have a special tip that I recently adopted that I picked up from these doing the presentation so much, and that's scheduling a no spend day. I've actually
Mm,
scheduled Tuesdays and Thursdays to be no spend days. And initially, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit difficult to be like, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna not spend money? And I realized it's a lot easier than I thought, to be honest with you. It takes a little bit of extra planning, if that, where on Mondays I know, all right, cool, I'm gonna bring my lunch in on Tuesday. Same thing for Wednesdays, and I will allow myself to treat myself when it comes to food shopping for Tuesdays and Wednesdays to give myself a bit of a nice boost on those Thursdays, Tuesday and Thursday, so that way I have a good time. So if you can incorporate some of the habits that you've picked up that you all some self-care habits so that way you can build them into your shifting priorities when it comes to not spending money, it makes it a lot easier. So it doesn't feel like it's as restrictive. And if anything, it feels like a treat.
yeah, I love that. And that also goes into number three here, evaluating if you need to make a lifestyle change. Changing from, buying that food all the time, or just, you're kind of out and about, it's easy to spend money. Like shifting some of that, do those no spend days, that kind of thing, plan that out. It can be really helpful and is a great way to just kind of start making small lifestyle changes, just kind of spending less, but still being able to feel like you're enjoying the things that you like. I love that. Um, Refinancing is another big one. If you have a car payment you've been paying off for a while, maybe your interest rate's quite high, you can refinance that debt into a lower interest rate. You can also do that with student loans. You can do that with a lot of different types of loans. Even you can do a zero balance transfer on a credit card as an option. You want to make sure that if you're doing something like that, though, that you have a plan, a payoff plan, and you're understanding the amount of time it will take you to pay off that amount. Because the zero balance transfers for credit cards are usually for the first year. If you open a new credit card, you can transfer your balance from one card to another, and have a $0% interest, but you need to make sure you're paying off that balance before that runs out, or you're not actually going to be saving money. So there's a lot of different ways you can kind of take whatever sort of debt you might have and refinance it to a lower interest rate. And there's a lot of options for that, that you can go into a branch and speak with somebody about. And then being a savvy consumer, I like to talk about this one a lot with groceries. There's a lot of great habits you can get into when it comes to food and grocery shopping to ensure that you are um, increasing your savviness. Not shopping at Whole Foods is a great example because Whole Foods is
Hey,
very expensive. It's got that good food, got the organic stuff, but Trader Joe's is quite similar. I mean, similar in a sense that they have really good quality products, but they're much cheaper. You're not paying a premium on those groceries. Trader Joe's is awesome for that. Not going grocery shopping when you're hungry is another big one.
that's
Um,
actually pretty big. That's a huge
yeah,
one. Have a
as you can
snack, have
see,
some fruit with you.
yeah, preparing here for food shopping. Eat before you go. Make a list. What I always like to highlight here is when you make your grocery list, write down meals instead of individual items. So you can write down, like, on Tuesday, I'm going to do taco night. And then you write down below that, what are the items I need for my own taco night? So that way you know that all of the things you're getting slot into a meal that you're making for yourself that's healthy, that's balanced, that has these different things. And so therefore, you're not just buying a bunch of stuff, a bunch of snacks that like don't slot into something that's going to keep you full, keep you healthy. And you actually end up, I know that when I started doing it this way, saved a lot of money because I would, like, before I would just get so many snacks and things. I would get home and I would make like a couple meals and then feel like I ran out of groceries already after just a couple days, even though I had spent so much and I have all this extra stuff in the house. I don't really know how to make it into a meal that I can feed myself with. So doing that, I think, is really helpful in making sure you're very focused in on your list and exactly what you need to know. And then knowing what you already have before you go shopping. A lot of things in the pantry or in the fridge can kind of get stuck in the back there, and it's easy to forget what you already have. And so making sure that you know what you don't need to buy when you get out there is a really great way that you can save money on food. Food is a huge expense in people's life. And there's a lot of ways you can save money on it and improve your expenses when it comes to shopping for food, when it comes to eating out at restaurants and that kind of thing, cooking at home. There's a lot of great ways you can get something like a slow cooker where you can put in all sorts of different ingredients in there. It'll like cook you up the meal like over the day, and you can have it at the end of the day. And there's so many different ways you can cook that way that like there's a little bit of something for everybody. And that you just need a few ingredients with. It cooks it for you. It's great. Like a rice cooker, those are quite cheap. You can make like really good rice with whatever sort of seasoning or things you want
I got
to.
a rice cooker. It's huge.
Yeah, it's amazing how simple it is. Like it really changed my life. Where it's like if you feel like you can't cook, you can get a rice cooker. You can get some pilafs or some rice and some seasoning, whatever it is. It'll just do it for you. It'll perfectly ding when it's ready. You take it out and you eat it, and it's awesome. So there's a lot of great ways, a lot of great devices out there that you can improve, even if you don't feel like you're a good cook or you don't know how to do it for yourself. There's a lot of shortcuts you can do. And so I know we're talking a lot about the food expenses, but it's really a big one. Like it's one of those ones that's kind of between an essential and a want, and it's so easy to get muddied with how much you're spending. And it feels important because you need to feed yourself, you need to eat what you want, but it's hard. It can be so easy to lose track of how much of an expense it really is. And so there's so much gray area there to improve your habit, to become a savvy consumer, and to make sure that you are finding ways to save more. Another great thing is discounts. There's so many discounts available out there in the world through your employer. Harvard is a great example. If you work through Harvard, there's so many different things, so many different discounts out there you can find on events, on all sorts of different like items and that kind of thing. Definitely take a look at like your school's website, your the various discounts and stuff available to you through that. Terrence, I think you have a little more information about like household phone and that kind of thing when it comes to discounts.
Yes. If you are in the market for a different phone provider, I would suggest looking through MVNOs. Those are mobile virtual network operators. One more time, MVNOs. And what they, for example, it'll be your Cricket Wirelesses, your Mint Mobiles. Selected Visible, which was a great one. I think you also have Google Fi. And what it is, it's basically instead of having a physical branch or physical place for you to go into to talk to someone about your phone, you get an eSIM or a SIM card in the mail, and you're able to use all the same services you normally would beforehand. I would add a little bit of a caveat where I would be mindful of the data that you're using on those bigger plans, where the mobile virtual network operators can have smaller data limits, for example. But if you're connected to Wi-Fi for most of your time, whether you're at work, you're at school, or at home, it really shouldn't be a big difference to you at all.
Yeah, I love that. And those types of businesses can really save money for them and for you because they don't have like, the brick and mortar establishments you have to go into.
Brick and mortar,
You
yes.
don't get locked into quite as many of an extended plan, that kind of thing. So they're saving money from not having to run business locations, and they can pass that savings down to you, much like the credit union, not for profit, passes our profits on to our members in our community as well. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of different discounts out there. Sometimes your banking institution on their website and stuff will have different discounts you can find as well. So just be smart, like whether or not it's coupons or you're looking through the various options available to you, trying to find ways to get some discounts and asking people, whether it's your school, your employer, your bank, what kind of discounts are available to you. You'd be surprised how much you can save without some of that.
Mhm. And don't be
So
afraid
I
to
want to ask,
ask either.
what's
Oh,
that?
perfect. I was gonna say, don't be afraid to ask for a discount. Sometimes it will
Yeah.
work.
Sometimes you're just going to ask for stuff, And
Yeah.
as an example for asking for stuff, I would like to ask each and every one of you, how do you save money? If you'd like to pop something in the Q&A, if there's any sort of tips and tricks you use, we can kind of share them with the group. That would be awesome. But I also want to ask Terrence, what are some other things that you do to save money that we haven't talked about quite yet?
Awesome. So you can take a break, take some water as I fill in the chat for a little bit or fill in the silence. I personally use Too Good to Go. It is TOO good TOO go. And what it does is it partners with local restaurants in my area, whether it's Cambridge, Boston, or Dorchester or whatnot. And at the end of the night, you are able to get the same quality food at a discount. So it's not being thrown away. They prepare you a bowl and they give it to you for like $4. I like to go to Kava in Hingham, honestly. And I know there's this stigma that like, oh wait, I'm eating leftover food. It may not be as good. Nope. I've been in line with people who got the same exact ingredients as me next to them, and they paid $16.99 for the same bowl that I'm paying $4.99 for. And it just works. There is a caveat where sometimes you can get a surprise bag and you don't know what's in it, and you might have to limit where you go to after hours, not after hours, but like 8 or 9 o'clock right before closing. But if you're looking for a late night snack and you want to try something new, Too Good To Go has always been a very reliable source for me. And they're constantly updating and adding new restaurants. So I highly, highly, highly recommend Too Good To Go.
Awesome. I love that. Thanks, Terrence.
Mhm.
All right, in the interest of time, I want to make sure we're moving quite along. It's about 1:45 now, and I want to make sure we can get to any questions as well. So we're gonna kind of make sure we get through this, but work on it a little bit more streamlined. So, money tips to try. Like Terrence said, schedule no spend days. This is a great one. Making sure that you Tuesdays or Thursdays or whatever day works for you. I think this is great for me. I like to do this when I'm working from home. I'm not out and about. It's a lot easier to not spend money if you're not there at the store. Or you don't get in Starbucks on your way in or whatever it is. Just spending when I'm at home already, I've got food here. I don't need to spend money. So whether or not it's scheduling certain days of the week or certain days when you're home and it's easier, schedule days where you just don't spend any money. That can be a great one. That can really help you save on expenses.
Mhm.
Set up automatic savings deposits. So kind of like, and use separate savings accounts, reach your goals, name your accounts, that kind of thing. So I did notice that we had a question in the chat, which was asking a little bit more about my style of opening a lot of bank accounts and naming them different things and how to do that. So a lot of financial institutions, you can actually just open up bank accounts like online, especially if you already have like an account or profile on there. You can go right in. There's a way you can open up an account. It'll just open it up right under you. So say I have my main checking account. I can just open up another checking account right on there. I can request no debit card for that account if I don't need one, which is totally fine. And then I can name that account. That can be also with savings accounts. This can also be very helpful for when you name your savings account, your financial goal. So, for example, I would name my savings account Honeymoon Fund, and then I can set up automatic deposits right through my bank where when my paycheck comes in, the money moves automatically, whether or not that's me doing it or automatically right into the savings account. And then the cool accountability feature of naming my savings account like my honeymoon fund is that if I ever feel the need to take money from that, I'm not just going to be taking money from savings account 4428. I'm going to be taking money from an account that says honeymoon. And if I'm taking money from my vacation, that's going to feel bad to me. That's going to make me pause and be like, do I really need to do this? Do I really need to take this money from there? Or is there a way I can figure out something else in order to not have to take from my savings and make sure that I'm reaching that goal? Budget date nights is great. Budget outings, there's a lot of different ways you can save money through various events and things, through Harvard as an example, stuff like that. And if you have roommates, like rotating your subscriptions, have somebody pay for Netflix, somebody pay for HBO if that's one of the ones you want to go, and have different people pay for different things and all share them together. This works best when you're all in the same house, especially with some of the Netflix stuff. But just finding ways to work with your friends, your family, whoever it is, to save on money, save on the different things everybody's paying for is a really great way to also limit some of your expenses.
And please don't tell Netflix we said this.
All right, Terrence, I want to toss it over to you for a quick overview on credit.
Okay. So honestly, so far, great job, Ty. Thank you everyone for being on the call. Let's get through credit, and I will do my best to keep it brief, but also keep it informative. Go. Okay, so what is credit? I want to just level set and ensure that we're all on the same page. Credit is utilizing a loan now and paying it over a period of time. Credit is not your debit card or using cash to pay for funds. So anything that you earn as far as like income from alimony, child support, W-2s, side hustles, anything like that, that is not credit. But if you're using a loan, such as your car payment, credit cards, or debt consolidation loans, that is technically considered credit. So, oh, maybe not debt consolidation, but like credit cards. That's credit. Next. There are three major credit bureaus to be mindful of: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And what they do is they collect information on you, such as the accounts that you currently have, any outstanding debts that you have, your relationship with lenders, also information from your utility companies as well, depending on how things go, and anything that is also in collections. The reason why they collect this is because they are creating a credit profile for you that will then further inform your credit score and further your credit worthiness when it comes to lenders pulling your information to extend credit to you in terms of future loan, whether it's a mortgage, an auto loan, or again, a new credit card. Next.
Yeah, I love that. And I do just want to chime in that like it's great when you can just improve credit by as long as you're paying back debt, student loans, phone, credit card, these different types of things. an auto payment, for example, that is improving and working on improving your credit score and building it over time. So it's pretty great that there's all of these things that it is, and there's a lot of information and a lot of like nuance to it. But the great part is that there kind of just by doing the things you're doing and making sure you're doing payments on time, you are going to be working on improving that credit score just over time, which I think is really great.
Hmm. And I highly, 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 highly recommend checking your credit report often at annualcreditreport.com. If any place is trying to charge you fees or ask for your credit card information, that is not the right place. And I want to take it a step further to reassure and reconfirm that you should be checking your credit report is that you want to ensure there's accurate information on it. There's Unfortunately, we live in a time where there's a lot of scams and frauds going on right now, where people are stealing others' identities left and right. And I don't mean to be negative Nancy here, but it is oftentimes family members that are stealing your information or opening lines in your name that you may not be aware of. So checking your credit report is one of the most surefire ways to ensure that all the information that is reflected on it is accurate. And if you're checking it frequently, the sooner you can get ahead of something that is inaccurate, the better it will be for you and your financial wellness.
I love that. Yeah, you really want to just make sure, like I said, shining a light on everything. Make sure you're taking a look at the things available to you. Make sure that everything lines up. Make sure you understand what the information is. So doing this a few times a year is a really great way to make sure that everything on your name is good. Make sure you're getting everything taken care of and understanding where your score is coming from.
Hmm.
Okay. Great. All right. So next steps
Oh,
after
okay.
today's presentation, if you take anything from this, I would like you all to at least focus on these couple things. Know your money personality, know your relationship with money, how your behavior is going to interact with how you spend and save money. Setting up a budget, however that looks for you, whether it's using something like a Google Sheet or using another tool through online banking or perhaps a third-party app that can help you to track even more information. And then pick one money tip, try for the next week, whether that's just improving on grocery spending, whether that's taking a look through your school or your job for any sort of discounts you can get, finding a way, one thing to focus on, breaking it down, like that goal gradient where you're taking the big goal and breaking it down into pieces. Take the big goal of improving money behaviors, improving your budgeting habits, and break that down into different things you can do and try to focus on one a week. And if you're feeling like that's getting you somewhere, seeing what else you can add on. It's all little steps, but as long as you're taking forward steps, even if the what the heck effect comes around, you're going to be able to make sure that you're always moving forward.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much. That was our presentation today. I do just want to let you know a few more resources available to you. We here at the Credit Union, we have a blog we post about 3 different times a week on all sorts of current events when it comes to money climate and all sorts of different things you can do to improve your habits, that kind of thing. There's all sorts of great information on the website there. We also have a couple different other partnerships and things like that, such as GreenPath. GreenPath is a huge one. This is another nonprofit that we pay for our members and our community that offers free financial counseling, whether that's budgeting, housing, student loan, credit counseling. If you are referred to through us, whether you are or are not a member with the credit union, you can get free individual one-on-one financial counseling through GreenPath. You just got to let them know that we referred you, whether that's online or if you give them a call. And they will be able to talk to you about your individual situation, help you figure out the next best steps you can take. If you watch this presentation and you're like, that's all great in theory, but what do I do about my life and my situation? GreenPath will be able to help you find that answer. I can't talk enough about how awesome they are. They're one of our very favorite partners that we work with. So please, if you need a little more help or if you're curious about what your next steps might be, definitely take a look at the website there or give them a call and let them know that we sent you and they're going to be able to help you out. Building on that, this is our disclaimer. We are doing these webinars as educational in nature. This is just an example. This is not tax, legal, or investment advice. We can only talk about these topics on a very sort of broad educational standpoint. Everybody's life and situation is different. Everybody's wants and needs and the things that they're struggling with financially are different. So you really want to make sure that you're using something like GreenPath or some other individual financial one-on-one resource to make sure you're figuring out how to apply all of these to your life, especially if that's related to tax or legal or investment type things. We do also actually have great investment services through the credit union now. We have a wonderful financial advisor who can help with investment. His name is Raj. He works right there in the Harvard Square branch. And as well as he spends time in our other branches as well. So definitely take a look into that if that's something you need help with. And if you are a member at the credit union, definitely take a look. But we can only do our best to keep in touch with you guys and make sure that we are helping you learn, helping you improve as a community. And we really want to make sure that you guys succeed. So thank you so much for joining in today. By watching this webinar, you've taken your first step towards shining a spotlight on your own financial situation, finding ways to improve. So thank you so much. We have a few more minutes if anybody has any extra follow-up questions they want to ask or anything like that. But please keep in touch with us. And thank you so much for joining today.
100%. Any questions that anyone would like to ask? You have us both, two experts here. I don't see anything coming in the Q&A.
Yeah, nothing coming in. So thank you guys again so much. I also just want to let you know, we do put all of these presentations on our YouTube page, and we do deep dives into basically all of the things we touched on today, including credit, including money personality. We can find ways that we can talk more about all of the specific ones and deep diving into that. So it's all available for free on our YouTube page. Please feel free to go check it out. That's just going to be YouTube/My8HarvardFCU. Take a look at that. There's all of our videos. We do a bunch of these webinars and all sorts of content on there. So if you want to watch this one again or figure out some of these other topics, take a look at that when you get the time. But thank you all again so much for joining us today. We love helping out. You're probably going to get a survey link to this presentation as well. If you want to, please feel free to give us some feedback. We read each and every one of those feedbacks that we receive as a team. We love finding ways to improve. So thank you all, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the nice weather out
Thanks.
there.
Bye, everyone.